So Gwen Shroyer. How do you spell that?
Shroyer. Comes from a southern Germany family named Schreier, Schrier, which is on the border of Austria and Switzerland, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. There's a lake there, and there's still some family settled there. In fact, some of the family actually runs an inn, a real nice chateau inn right on a lake, and they have a restaurant.
So you're German?
German.
What percent would you say?
I mean, I did the 23andMe last year. Wasn't it last year, I think? Saw that, about 60 to 70% of my ancestry was from Europe, and the biggest part of that was from Germany. So I mean, they go back, they tell you got Neanderthal traits.
My dad had that done.
They tell you have sub-African, family. They tell you have South American or the Native American. They'll tell you all of those things. It's really unique.
Do you think the idea of true blood or like dogs, so they say this
purebred,
this dog is or this horse is true bred. In other words, it's no other kind.
I'm kind of a little bit different than that. I kind of like the fact that you have multi facets in your culture. I mean, obviously it comes down to what you know about your family ancestry. My mother comes from a family of Irish, and she had 6 siblings. They all ended up in the orphanage here in Cleveland. Her and her twin brother were the only ones adopted out of the orphanage ever. And that's pretty weird, isn't it?
Yeah, so your mother came from Germany.
No. She was born in a family in South Carolina.
And ended up at an orphanage
here in
Cleveland.
Yeah, very strange. And the only 2 ever adopted in the history of that orphanage, 50, 60, whatever years, the only 2 to ever be adopted out of that orphanage. And that placed them in Wyoming. So her and her brother were raised in Wyoming. Very unique. Changed their names. I think my mom's name was Myrtle May, I think, and changed it to Glenda. And then her brother changed his name to Glenn, and they called him Buddy. But 2 of them raised in Wyoming. That was the only kids they had. They were raised in a motel setting. Grandparents had a motel on the way to about 100 miles due east from Cody, Wyoming, gateway to the Yellowstone Park.
Now it's funny that she was in an orphanage in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Moved to Wyoming.
Of all places.
And then now you're back here.
And I'm back here. It's really strange, isn't it?
That's more coincidence.
I got a few connect the dots, but not a whole lot. Part of that is because of the Church of God of Prophecy.
Connect those for us.
Part of it is the Church of God of Prophecy was the one that owned the orphanage.
Does she know who her true parents were?
She knows who her mother is. She's not certain about her father. She thinks her father was a gentleman named by the name Langley. We're still researching that. But unfortunately, we don't have all the records that show any of that. So it's kind of who knows who and a little bit about that historical side.
So she gets orphaned.
Yes.
She moves to Cleveland in the orphanage.
And not here very long at all.
And gets adopted.
Moved to Wyoming.
How was she adopted?
I don't think she was 2 yet, if I'm not mistaken. I think
so she doesn't remember being in Cleveland.
She doesn't. In fact, I think my grandmother tells the story that she had a pot in the car and actually potty trained him on the way back to Wyoming. So they were that age.
Why did the family pick 2 of the kids? I couldn't imagine doing that.
Well, there was a lot of other siblings. There was 4 brothers and 2 sisters. 5 brothers and 2 sisters. And of course, out of that, one sister was my mom, and one of the brothers was my uncle, her twin.
Why they picked those 2? Who
they
knows?
They were the babies.
Yeah.
They were the youngest.
Does she know the others?
Oh, yeah. In fact, because it was a church orphanage and kept that, connection, and my grandparents out there always just told them they were adopted. Never even, that wasn't something they worked through. They just loved them. You're adopted. You're now a Sutherland. That was the surname they took on out there. And your family back in Cleveland is Cassidy. So Clan of Cassidy's here in Cleveland, related to my mom and her brother out west. And because of like the International Assembly that would happen here in Cleveland, my grandparents would come out here to visit and be a part of that. And because most of her brothers and sister that lived here in town, they also associated with the church and were able to be a part of that. So
when she came back to the assembly,
she got to see her brothers and sisters.
And she knew it and all that.
Yes. One thing I missed on telling you was the lady here in Cleveland that knew my grandparents, Elva Howard, she was from Wyoming. Really good friends with my grandmother. They grew up in the same community, real small community of just a couple hundred people, and probably called her, sent her letters, says, we have a baby here that you can adopt. Well, they came here not knowing there was twins. So then, Elva pulled a fast one and made sure they adopted both of them. There's a lot of pieces to that.
So your really mother grows up in Oklahoma.
In Wyoming.
In Wyoming.
Mm-hmm. And the other side of that story is my dad's family, his father was a pastor, and sometime, I guess my father might have been late elementary school, middle school age, 6th, 7th grade. Sometime around there, they moved to that same town where my mom lived, ended up being the pastor of the church that my mom's family went to. And my dad had a big slew of brothers and sisters too. Very active in that little small community. I think there's only about 800 to 1,000 people living in that community, Grable, Wyoming.
So they start dating and...
They started dating through church events, more like the courting, didn't really serious date. Dad gets notice that he's probably going to get drafted. This is during the Vietnam War in the 60s. And he decides that he's going to join the Air Force because he wants to be able to manipulate what it is, he's going to set out to do, hopefully. So he joins the Air Force, moves to Minneapolis area after basic training in Texas, moves to Minneapolis to go to school for drafting, building, construction drafting, technical drafting, graduates the top of his class. Because the Vietnam War is going on, not really a big need for builders and that kind of thing at that time. And they plug him into military police. So he gets an assignment in Alaska, not anybody's favorite place to go. And he's up there and working on the flight line, just guarding planes. I mean, there's not much to it. And here's that my mom started dating this guy. She came into Cleveland, went to the BTI, Bible Training Institute, which was Church of God of Prophecy.
Because her siblings were here?
Siblings here, part of the church. And she comes here to go to Bible school after high school. And she starts dating this pretty nice guy here from Cleveland. What's his name? Malone. Robert Malone. They know this. My wife's over there gasping. But anyway, my mom and Robert Malone dating. And I don't think he had suggested that they were going to get married, but my dad thought, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's my gal. And so he flies in real quick and dates her for a few days, whatever, they hang out. I don't know how long that period was, a week or whatever. And he finally proposed to her and she said yes. And then he gets a new assignment in Texas.
She didn't finish the Bible college?
It was just a course of a few weeks. It was just a school. So, no, it wasn't a college thing. She did go to college. She went to Billings, Montana, studied business.
After she married him?
After high school, but before married.
So she goes to high school.
She went to
college there.
Do clerical work.
And comes back here to do a seminar of some sort.
That's about it. and gets
Your dad
into a
gets
relationship.
nervous.
Yep. He finds out about this relationship. And this guy actually traveled out to Wyoming to visit her out there. And I think that's when he really, of course, his brothers and sisters still live in Grable. They're the ones feeding him all of this.
Yeah.
You know, so I imagine that was pretty fun. Anyway, they get married, moved to Waco, Texas, heart of Texas, right there in the middle of nothing, Texas.
Had they only known what was going to happen a few years later, right?
Yeah. So Dad's still active duty military. I don't even think he's got his sergeant stripes yet. I think he's still very young in the military. And a year after they're, married, here I come. I'm born. So I'm born in Waco, Texas.
What year?
65. So next week I'll be 55.
I'm already 55.
Yeah.
Last month.
Yep. So they start this family, and Dad's decided he's going to hold on to the military. He likes that focus. I think he's less interested in staying with the military police because he starts jumping through the hurdles trying to change his job title to do something a little more in line with, technology and what he's good at. So they move from Texas, they move to Colorado Springs, which is beautiful. And Dad ends up working on a military installation there. NORAD, the big mountain, is right there. It's Cheyenne Mountain, but they call it NORAD. That's where they do all the anything space related or governing missile sightings, that kind of thing. And inside of that mountain is the whole floor is on springs. So if it was ever bombed,
I've seen that on the documentaries.
Yeah, it would stay. It's pretty neat. And you drive into it. I've seen all kinds of things like that too. I've never been up there, but so I'm, growing up. Dad gets a new assignment to work outside of the Pentagon in Washington D.C. at Air Force Base called Bolin, which is near the Potomac. It's not even Air Force Base anymore. And so we moved to Virginia, right outside of D.C. And I remember a little bit of being in Colorado Springs. I remember a babysitter I had, but when we moved to Virginia, I remember a whole lot. And I'm just, 3 or 4. And I learned how to ride a bike. I remember the neighborhood. You remember those glass ball things that were on a string and you pop them like that?
Yeah.
That was really big at that time. I remember them being all through the telephone wires of that little neighborhood we lived in. How crazy, what in the world? And I remember playing with it, and everybody said that's too dangerous for kids. And
is that what you remember mostly as being raised in Virginia?
No, just that time period. I had a brother that was also born there. He was born there in 1970, and good kid. We had a lot of fun. It was nice having a sibling. You're all by yourself, and then all of a sudden you got basically either a punching bag or you got somebody to play with, or, we had a good time. Later we moved to Montgomery, Alabama, of all places. And that is where things started to unravel for my mom's twin brother. He had 2 boys, and he had some bad luck, job situations, bad marriages, a lot of complications, nothing like going to jail, but just, bad situations. And my mom and dad took it upon themselves to not adopt the 2 boys, but to take them in, live with us for a year. And so I'm in 2nd grade, I think, and they move in with us for a year just till, Buddy gets himself together. And so that was kind of cool. Then you have more brothers, we kind of had like our own little team of anybody in the neighborhood. Yeah, we're only 5, 6, 7, whatever, but we played outside all the time. Pretty good, availability to play sets and parks and all that stuff. Then they moved off the next year. Dad took a new assignment. He was still trying to change jobs, and he took a new assignment with OSI, which is kind of like the CIA of the Air Force. And during that time period, Mom and I and my youngest brother, Kevin, we moved to Florida, Pensacola, which I thought was cool, man. You're out on the beach. We're there in the latter part of the summer. I started school there, 3rd grade. But OSI did not jive with Dad. And in his words, there's too many lies and things that, you know, if you're the straight black and white kind of guy, you know, where everything's true or false, it's hard to do those kind of lies, and, you know, he just couldn't do it. So he dropped out and changed jobs, and that's when he went into computers, which was
Still in the military?
Still in the military. He didn't drop out of the military. He dropped out of OSI training and went into computer science as a programmer, and ended up being a really good programmer. This is back when you had slot cards and tape drive machines were your computers.
Very beginning.
I remember going into his office, and in the back room, it was probably 100 feet long. It had computer drives all the way through there, tape machines spinning, lights, you know, card machine, all of that stuff was really huge. And you think about all of that now is in the size of your phone now, that kind of memory. But yeah, Dad was involved in that. And we moved to Nebraska. And living in Nebraska was kind of magical for me. It's when really knew how to enjoy snow. We'd lived in, you know, the north before, but you live in that kind of snow, man. We had 6 feet, 12 feet of snow. We were building igloos. And
were you 10 at the time?
Yeah,
like that?
I was in late elementary school. That was.
Do you remember kids that you had in 1st grade and 2nd grade?
I remember a few.
Grade,
yeah, I told my wife this is a funny story. When I was in the 1st grade, there was this girl that I went to school with, and she took a liking to me. That's my story. Her name's Maggie. I think her name was Margaret, but everybody called her Maggie. And one day on the way home, because we walked to school, you know, we didn't have a bus. On the way home, she asked me, she said, well, I want you to, you know, walk with me, which was, you know, a different direction by her house. And then you can go on to your house. So I did. And we got pretty close to her house. And she said, well, let's just climb up this tree right here. So we did. She pulled out a jar of Kool-Aid. We sat up in the tree and drank Kool-Aid together. I mean, that's like
1st and
serious.
2nd grade.
First grade. Maggie and I drinking Kool-Aid out of the same jar. I mean, that's.
What, do you wonder if she's alive today?
I don't know.
Don't remember her last name?
I don't. But her dad would have been, or parent would have been in the military.
Yeah. She would have been moving around as much. So maybe the kids that you were with were moving around too.
Dee, I have friends, thousands of friends, but they're all over the world. And it's, you know, what's cool is Facebook is helping me piece some of that together. So
how do you, where in your mind, where are you from?
So the big question is with military kids growing up in the military, you don't really have a home base. I mean, I didn't call Wyoming home, even though that's where my parents were from. It was wherever I lived. And if I was in, you know, Nebraska, I'm from Nebraska, man. That's where I'm from. So, you know, later in my teens, we moved to Europe, living in Germany, Stuttgart, Germany, and I'm going to school, one of the most prestigious schools in all of Europe. And I'm from Germany. You know, I'm not.
Early teens?
Yeah, until graduating high school.
So in your mind, you're from Germany.
Well, I mean, that's where I came from to move here. So, and to be honest with you, I didn't move to Cleveland, Tennessee to live in Cleveland, Tennessee forever. I didn't even think, I don't ever remember thinking of Cleveland, Tennessee as some place that I wanted to live.
Now, right now, you're the Bradley High School
Audiovisual production
teacher,
yeah. Yep.
That's a long name. Audiovisual.
And we call
production.
AV production.
Yeah.
AV production. So yeah.
So how long have they had that at Bradley High School?
Since the fall of 2007 when I moved there.
Prior to that, they didn't have it?
They had a class in the marketing program where they did a morning announcement program, that type of thing, you know.
How did you get selected to be that teacher?
Well, I was in sports production, TV news production before in the late 1990s into the mid 2000s.
But what was your graduation? What did you
Studied communications and music ed.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, Briggs Smith, was the career and tech ed vocational director in Hamilton County Schools, and talked to me about teaching at that time, teaching TV production at Saudi Daisy High School. And so I started teaching at Chattanooga Central in 05. And then the next year I was at Saudi Daisy, and then Bradley came calling and said they wanted to start the program, and ended up there because I lived in Cleveland and my kids went to Bradley. So kind of fun when you have a passion for a particular school, being able to get into that school and do something with it. Because even teaching at Saudi Daisy is a wonderful high school, great kids, definitely not a Title I focused school. These kids come from pretty wealthy, families, well-to-do, good middle class, strong middle class families, living on the ridge, and a lot of them working at the Sequoia nuclear plant there. When I came to Bradley, I didn't really have that expectation, of that type of kid, because Bradley at the time I went there was a Title I school, lower middle class.
What was
families.
your decision to come to Bradley?
Because I was all about Bradley. That's where my kids went to school, and at the time there were some succinct things that I didn't really like so much.
And you'd come to Bradley through your Tomlinson College, right?
Yeah, I went to Tomlinson College back in 1984. Moved here.
Your whole life, you can't get around.
I know.
You can't get away from
Cleveland,
Cleveland, Tennessee.
It's been a unique hub.
Everywhere from your mother.
Yeah, it's kind of like God drawing the string to the button, pulling me back.
You tried to leave.
Back. Yeah, it's strange.
Are you here to stay?
I guess so. I mean, I like it here. I'm not complaining now. I mean, I like the atmosphere of a big town. I like to live in the middle of a really big city with high-rise buildings where everything's in a 3 to 5 block area that you need. You want to go to the theater, you walk 2 blocks this way. You want to go to church, you walk 2 blocks that way. You want to go to the store to buy some groceries, you walk downstairs and down the block. That's what I like, but this is not anything like that. But the community is great here.
Now, they tell me that people to take your class come from as far as Athens, Sweetwater, actually commute their kids to your class.
We've had several kids that been out of zone. Yeah, they end up coming to our
so
class.
you're the guy.
Well, it didn't start like that. In 2007, Cleveland, Walker Valley, and Bradley, all 3 schools started the program that fall of 07. John Souders, media guru. I mean, he has got so many creative ideas and notions that he brought to the table that really made Cleveland unique. They started sports production right away. They had money they put towards that. Scott Webb at Walker Valley had all kinds of great ideas and really saturated what they were doing, with what he wanted to do. I mean, the school system really gives you the keys. You want to do your thing, this is how you get to decide how you do
now,
it.
Isn't this a new curriculum?
It is.
If I could use that right.
So let's just say 15 years ago, everything broadcasting was based on tape drive machines, okay? To take a camera with a tape and edit it, you had to have a machine that had tape drives. So you pulled the tape out, pop it in one play machine, put in another tape on a record machine, and you'd have to rewind and sift and put in edit points. That's called a linear editing machine. About the same time, 15 years ago, people started coming out with what they call nonlinear, a computer system, and you have to take that tape and convert it to a digital format on the computer. That's what we're teaching now. That has been the most huge change.
Teaching editing.
Teaching editing, because that is the basis for everything you're trying to do. I got a kid that wants to be an anchor. They just want to sit in front of the camera with a microphone and read the teleprompter and do a presentation. That's great.
So that would be involved in this.
That's great. But the problem is there's not enough people in your news division, wherever you're working, to allow you just to do that one thing. And your anchors, in Chattanooga, you're looking at different anchors.
4, 5, maybe?
Yeah. So you've got those people, they also have to edit. Give you an example. Paul Shaheen on Channel 3. He does the sports. He'll give you all the scores. He'll give you beautiful updates on how a team is progressing. And he does, all the different levels, pro, high school, college. But he also goes to those facilities with a camera, records it, comes back, does the editing, and then he will give you kind of a descriptive play-by-play of what's going on of something he's edited. So it's not just as simple as sitting in front of the camera. So these kids that go to my class, every single one of them, they have to learn how to edit. That's the basic piece of, guarantee you know what you're doing going out of this.
So you'd have to learn how to edit, run a camera.
Run a camera,
I guess,
use a microphone.
Microphones.
Care for that equipment, make sure it stays charged up.
Plus, you'd have to, I guess if you were going to be a radio announcer, that would come under this heading.
Same thing. So difference between radio and TV is the person doing the speaking isn't talking directly into a camera. So Steve Hartline over at the radio station, he does a beautiful job of that. His whole presentation is the same as if he were in front of a camera. And they have cameras now. They're doing mixed TV, which is really neat. In fact, usually when I get to school, I've listened to it on the radio, and when I get to school, I pull it up on my computer and watch it on Facebook, just a little bit of it.
Now y'all have y'all do the news also, right, at your school?
We do a 30-minute newscast, and
5 days a week.
5 days a week. So what that does is prepare those students for.
Where do you get the news?
They have to go online and look it up through other news sources. We have a affiliate with CNN, so I have a news portal. They can go straight into CNN. Look up all the international, national, and local news stories.
And
they take that
pick their own, pick whatever they want.
They pick what they want, and they rewrite it into a 20-second format. So our news stories are 20 seconds. They're not minute and a half. That's pretty much the standard is a minute and a half. But we do a 20, and that way we have a bunch of news stories. And it works well. They choose either a video or a picture to go along with their story. And it's worded really well.
So it's almost like they're not just audio visual, but in your class they're actually writing.
They are daily.
So English would come into play.
Yes.
Presentation.
Yeah, I would think that if you're not a good writer, you're probably not going to be a good editor. You might get by
or a
with
good
it.
Announcer. Wouldn't that be
Especially
all the
an
same
announcer,
thing?
yeah. You want to make sure that you're fixated on using appropriate words. You want to use a passage that makes sense. You don't want to repeat yourself.
I often think, I remember in school they used to have a show and tell.
Yeah.
Where you'd come on Fridays and you would bring something to show and to tell about. This is actually the same thing, just in warp speed.
In a vocational format, you're being trained so you can actually go make money.
So you can show and tell.
Show and tell. That's a good point.
And if you wanted to film weddings.
Yeah, and we do that as well on the side. I have former students. I've had people in the community call me up. I had a venue in Chattanooga call us up and say, I've got a wedding here that we need somebody to come. Can you, do that? Here's what we'll pay you. And they would pay the school. And then whatever kids I took with me, I would pay them some out of that as well, just so they could understand, hey, this is not just about.
So this class you have, it's not like you come in and there's 20, 30 seats sitting out there at a desk.
No. There are 30 some seats, and there's at least 25 seats with a computer. So everybody's got their own workstation, but it's not a lecture room.
It's almost like
There are
an
very
auto.
few times that
Would
I,
it be almost in the lines of an auto body vocational class?
in that same vein, you are being trained to do a particular job. And here's the cool thing about it. So I told you the state or the district, you're going to teach this program, but you can teach it however you want. There are set standards in that the state mandates. A student must learn these standards, and it's my job to calculate. Has Dee Burris, learned this writing series? Does he understand how to capture in a news story the who, what, where, when, why, and how? Mm-hmm. And if he masters that, I can check that off. Yes, he's got that standard mastered. And I have to keep up with all of those and turn that into the state every year.
But it's that other thing that you do that attracts people to your class.
The fun, flashy stuff, yeah. So I have a class, like you mentioned, the news class. Mm-hmm. I have a level 1 class that teaches that basic editing in different phases of, we also do writing and script writing and, some fun stuff in front of the camera that's silly. And we have a film festival that kind of gets to glorify that.
What about the weather?
Okay,
Do you have anybody stand in front of the...
Yes, we have a green screen, and I've had several students excel in that. In fact,
now, would you have to be a meteorologist to do that?
If you want to do that professionally, you do have to go to school and have.
So you wouldn't teach them, obviously, meteorology.
I don't. No.
You would teach them how to
teach
present
presentation. You're exactly right. Teach presentation.
Yeah.
So
show and tell.
2 years ago, I had a student graduate. His name's Patrick Motes. He is going to University of Tennessee at Martin. Wonderful student, great golfer too. But his passion is weather. He came to me as a freshman and took my level 1 class. And you get to spend some quality one-on-one time as they're working on individual projects. Mm-hmm. I go around and make sure they're, kind of following through some things, but also get to know them. And not long after I got to know him, he says, I want to be a weatherman. I mean, this kid's 15 years old, maybe 14. He says, I want to be a weatherman. I've always wanted to be a weatherman. He says, I want to learn the skills I need to go into college, and then out of college go in and actually be a weatherman somewhere. I'm like, this is awesome. So finally, after a few classes that he took of mine, he ended up at my 3rd level, which is the news class. And I didn't put him in right away. I actually had him doing some editing, but had him editing some news stories about weather for my weatherman at the time, which was a senior. And then I think his junior year is when I turned him loose. And he studied weather models. They call them spaghetti models, because when you look at them, it's all the spaghetti. It just looks like string going every which way where all these hurricanes or storms are passing. And he understood all of that. And once he figured out how to present it, it was just very natural to him. So remember that name, Patrick Motes.
Patrick Motes.
A couple years.
If we don't see him, I almost think I've heard that name.
You may have. Really unique guy. He was also in show choir. He could sing and dance, plays piano really well, but he is super gifted in weather.
Wouldn't you have to know how to operate a camera in order to be in front of the camera? Does that make sense? Or wouldn't it help to know?
I think you need to know how to best position yourself. So we have a couple different depths in shots. We have a full shot, which would be you from head to toe. I would see your feet, and I would see above your head, and obviously your shoulders and all that. Then we have a medium shot that might be, around your knees or so above your head. Then we have a close-up that would just be like, across your waist, mm-hmm. shoulders, and square around your head. And you would need to know how to use those particular shots and each role they play. So if I send a student out to do a report on cafeteria, what's going on in the cafeteria this week, and that student starts out with what we call a stand-up, an introduction to his story, and he would say, I'm Gwen Shroyer here in the cafeteria at Bradley Central High School, and this week we're going to have noodles, and it's going to be hot and spicy noodles today. So let's learn a little bit more about this. And then he does the story. And then at the end, he says, I'm Gwen Shroyer in the Bradley Central Cafeteria. Now back to you in the studio. So they learn how to use that camera, staging on themselves before they become an anchor.
So if someone was a graduate of Bradley High School and went through your class, they could be good at presenting a story, doing the weather after they've gone through meteorology school, how to run the camera, how to run the microphone.
And sports, we have
a
sports
DJ.
production.
Now, do y'all also do I know Gary Ormby does the
he's the announcer.
The
for
announcer.
The radio. Yeah.
But you do the filming.
So every game that we do only home games. We do a few away games in postseason. We might go travel.
Football, basketball,
wrestling is our primary three.
No baseball.
We have done baseball. We've done softball. We've done volleyball, soccer, boys and girls.
How do you have time for all this? Because a person comes into your class and they're just coming in the 10th grade and they're taking your class just to have a class to take. Next thing you know, they're filming the football going
they're
across.
In the middle of it, yeah. So I've had several students, the Ratcliffe family. Gideon Ratcliffe came to me as a freshman, and immediately, that was the first year that we started doing all the home games. In fact, that year, we did every single home game of every sport except for track, golf, and bowling, which I don't know how you would, I still haven't figured out how to do those.
Yeah.
But we did every home game. And there were a few nights that year, we had 3 games going on at a time. That was tough. And when I say 3 games, we probably had 2 games. No, we had 3 games. We had a soccer game, baseball, and a softball game.
And you have to carry the camera out there?
We had equipment at each location, separate equipment. And
so who sets all that up? The students?
Yeah, the students.
So a student that goes through your class may not want to be on camera, but he may be involved in the setup.
They can run it. Yes.
Lighting, you go over lighting?
Lighting, graphics, scorekeeping.
Makeup?
We don't really do makeup so much in sports. We do some of that in our news class. I've had a student or two that's involved in cosmetology, and they do a pancake, which is a powder-based makeup. But we don't cake it on. We just look at some blemishes, like stuff on my nose,
shiny nose
cover it
or
up.
something.
Yeah, or if you're,
So
forehead.
How do you end up in this from Germany as a?
It's a good question. What I wanted to do when I came here from Germany, I had 2 ambitions. I was either going to be a sports broadcaster, calling games, like the Gary Owenby, or I was going to be a music teacher. And I really was leaning towards the second, being a music teacher. Play saxophone. I sang.
Now you're also in the band
Dexter Thomas.
Dexter Thomas. Are you a regular member of Dexter Thomas?
Regular member. They started the band in '95, and in
was you there originally?
I wasn't, because they didn't want a horn section. They wanted to keep it just kind of 5 or 6 of them. And then in '98, spring of '98, they decided, you know what, we're going to take the next step. We're going to do funk music or Motown hits or Chicago band, that kind of stuff. If we're going to do those songs right, we need a horn section. So at the time, I was working at the Cleveland Music Center, part-time doing instrument repair and some sales. But Harlan Rice, bass player, comes up to me and says, hey, you play sax? Come play sax with us. We need to put together this horn section. I'm like, yeah, I don't really want, because he was talking about playing it, pokey.
Did he know you could play?
Oh, yeah. And I said, I don't really want to play at bars, and, that's not really what I want to do. I've been through some of that, and it just, it's not me. Not my preference. So I helped him find another saxophone player. They did, I think, 2 months where they played at Pokey's a lot. And then they quit playing at Pokey's, and they just started doing weddings and festivals and, private corporate jobs and, other public events where it looked really fun. And I felt like I had missed out. I was like, I thought I probably should have done this. But they came back to me because the saxophone player had said something, to him about getting. They did, just it didn't work out. The two, they decided to part ways, and so Harlan came back to me, and he brought his friend Charlie, which I had played with before, and he said, "Hey, we got to find another saxophone player, and it's going really good." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you know somebody else, that we can pull in right now, like right away?" And I said, "Yeah, me. So I'll do it." So that was August of '98. I've been playing with them ever since.
How often do they play?
Usually we're playing, once or twice a month, except in the winter months. It kind of slows down, January through March.
So 5 a year?
We might play more than a dozen, independently. We've actually, I can remember one week we played 4 times in the same week. But then there's been other weeks where we haven't played any, and it just comes
And
down
with
to
COVID, I guess there's none.
we have only played one job since COVID. They had a downtown behind the Catch on First Street, next to that big apartment thing. We played there, First Street Square. We played something there back in April or May, whenever it was. And it was really fun. And it was nice to get out. And, being outside is as much of a barrier with COVID. It's being inside that's...
Well, it wasn't even bad
fun.
then, was it? Or,
No, I think it was before it was getting bad. Yeah. And everybody was in a safe distance. There were people sitting in their yard chairs and wearing a mask, and, kids out dancing, and it seemed pretty nice, But that's the last time we played together. Actually, we played a wedding reception.
Do you play by ear? Are you gifted?
Play by ear, but also read music. We do specific charts. So what happens is we play Earth, Wind, and Fire September. You heard that song? And it's got some really hard licks for the instruments. And there's 4 of us, 4 wind instruments, horns, and we play as one. Even though we've got 4 of us playing, we try to play as one voice. Same as the pianos over here playing with multiple fingers.
If you hear a song and you've never played it, can you play it?
I'd pick it up, sure.
10 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour?
Depends on what kind of song it is. If you're talking about mainstream pop, that's about the simplest form of music there is.
But so you're gifted at playing music, not learned?
I definitely think it's a gift. I felt, early on, I started playing clarinet in the 4th grade. I remember going to church and playing Blessed Be the Tie, the hymn. I played that on clarinet, feeling like I was so enriched, so good. I can't even imagine what it sounded like. But there's something to that. I feel like God blessed me with a certain skill, and the more I use it, the more it builds, the more it grows, the more it develops. And I've been pretty careful of using it as a blessing, and really thinking of worship. There's been times I'm playing at a wedding reception or something like that, and I'm thinking about, it's very spiritual how God has blessed me, and I feel like I'm playing to God, even though the people receiving that are right in front of me, and I hope they're enjoying it. I'm playing for them too, but there's something about how that connects with you as a human being. The Bible states that we are created in His image. So if you think about His image, most people think about what He looks like, what God appears to be. Has He got a big nose? Has He got a goatee or a big beard, white fluffy beard? I think His image is He's a creator. So in a broad sense, when I'm creating, I feel like I'm reflecting the image of God. When I am deep into music, way down, really digging in, making it sound good, developing what I'm working on, I feel like in the deepest part of that is I'm connecting to God on a totally different level, that I cannot reach through prayer. I cannot reach through meditation. I cannot reach through just, reading the Bible, even though I do those things. There's just it's just me and him, It's a unique characteristic about creating. Other people don't create through music, they create through writing, or they create through painting. You've got an aunt that paints. And
Are you a painter?
No, I wish.
Could you paint? Have you ever tried painting?
I don't believe so. I mean, as a kid, I probably did finger painting or some of that stuff.
Do you look at doing broadcasting or broadcasting the games as a form of art?
I think there's some art involved. I won't say that it's completely...
How can you connect what you do now with the music? Is there a connection?
So when you're creating a broadcast, you still have to represent yourself in it. Even if you're not the one that's in front of the camera speaking it, you're influencing what's being done. And that's the measure of creativity that you're giving. So if, by example, we're broadcasting a football game, and let's say I'm not in front of the camera, but man, those graphics better look good. So we have a way of doing the score graphics, and I want them to be first rate. The camera work, especially the main camera, it needs to be just stellar. It needs to include all the activity of the play and draw in on the person with the football.
Isn't that a form of art?
I think that part of it is, yes.
Just like the saxophone would be.
Just like the saxophone.
You're playing their art.
Yeah.
And with the camera, you're recording not the art, but you can... I mean, if you was a bad camera guy, you could make a football game look bad, couldn't you?
And we've done that. That's happened. I mean, I have young kids. Sometimes I don't have my best students available, and it ends up being a training night.
And that's what it's for, I guess, right?
That's what it's for. So you really have to work with them. And there's been some hateful people. We broadcast on Facebook, on YouTube, on NFHS Network. Well, Facebook and YouTube, especially Facebook, has a comment window where people can just say whatever they want. And there have been really harsh, ugly comments. A student will...
Especially a student. There's no need...
On a play, and something happens, and they don't catch the moment. Let's say that there's a really long pass, and they didn't follow the play to the exact spot.
Can't even see the ball. Yeah.
And people will type out stuff.
It's cruel, isn't it?
It is cruel. It is cruel.
To a guy that's trying to learn, trying to do it.
And I would hate for that camera operator to read that.
Oh, yeah.
Especially during the game. I'm trying to build these guys up. I'm trying to help them develop skills. And you've got people that they don't pay for it. I mean...
And they're going to sit and criticize.
Well, not only criticize, but I mean, some of them dig deep. I mean, really deep. And it's not comical. So I have yet to ban anybody from, watching it, but I have erased a lot of comments. A lot.
Now, in the school year, so y'all do events, and you'll do 5 newscasts a week.
Yep.
So in a given week, you could have 2 sports games
or 3.
Or 3, 5 newscasts. And
we do coaches shows. So
yeah,
all the coaches,
is this where you interview, and don't you interview a player?
Yep, do a player interview.
So you'll do like...
Could be 3 or 4
3 or 4
shows.
interviews.
Yeah. Now, I'll be honest with you, Gary Owenby schedules that. We do all of that in the studio, the students.
But no matter who schedules it, you're still doing it.
Still. I mean, the handicap is I don't have to call people. I don't have to send them a text. Hey, come in. Are you available? I don't have to do that. Gary does that.
But you have to have somebody there.
But I have the students there that know how to do it, and I step out of the way.
All in 1 hour's class time?
Hour and a half. We have an hour and 30, hour and 40 minutes per class.
To me, it'd be a scheduling nightmare.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If Gary is scheduling it, he just sends me a text the day before. He'll tell me on second block I've got 2 coach interviews.
What's
Third block.
What's block mean?
Class period.
They call them blocks?
Yeah, we have 4 class periods per day. And usually it's second and third block is when he'll...
When I went to school, it was 6 periods.
Yeah.
When did they change that to blocks?
They changed that sometime in the 90s, mid to late 90s, because you did a math class. Let's say you took Algebra 1.
Yeah.
You took Algebra 1 all year.
Yeah.
Well, now Algebra 1 is only 1 semester because it's lengthened out that class period. So it's double the amount of time.
We would spend most of our time walking from one class to the other.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So that's probably a pretty good idea.
I like it. I mean, I think when it changed to that, not a lot of people liked it. Now we have skinny blocks now that change. So in first block, you'll have a 1A and a 1B, and in freshmen they'll take math for the 1A, and then they'll go to an English class for the
short class.
The B. So it's just a shorter.
But everybody's still moving in the halls.
But then the next semester they're still doing that. So it's not.
But people aren't always walking in the hall.
No.
Because you'd have to have
it's quick.
semi-quiet.
In fact, they stay in the classroom and the teachers move to the class. So even better. But yeah, so that's the only way I can do the 30-minute newscast is because I have
that makes it that much easier.
Because it's from scratch. Now we have commercial breaks.
You got to work in the commercials too. That's where your editing student comes in.
I have a producer. So my director is back there switching the cameras, pulling up the cameras, talking to the floor director. He's got a headset on. He's saying, okay, ready camera 1, take camera 1, ready camera 2. And then, when it gets to the part where the reader ends and it's going to the next story, he'll go, take camera 2. And that floor director is giving signals like crazy behind the cameras.
So you've taken this class that wasn't even a class before, and you've almost set a standard for the class.
Yeah, we've developed it. We have 4 state championships. The past 5 years, there's only been 4 because in 2020 in April this year, they canceled the state conference. But Skills USA has an event called Broadcast News Production, and we have won it 4 years in a row. We went to nationals and placed in the top 10.
Is there a lot of classes in there?
There can be. There's been as many as 9. And as few as 3 or 4, I think few as 4, maybe 3. So, but it's your best schools across the state. Cleveland High School has been a part of it for years. They won the first 2 years. Cleveland High School did. They beat us up so bad. I don't know if it wasn't so much that we didn't know what the competition was. Even though I had studied it out, even though I knew kind of what it looked like, I really didn't understand the method to make it, perfect, give that student edge before we went to competition. Instead of just going and doing it and hoping for the best. Well, first year we went, it was miserable. The second year, I had a student that the day that we were supposed to leave, he told me, he said, I'm not going. And you can't change out the kids. The kids you turn in the month before, that's who you have to take. And this kid said, I'm not going. I said, what do you mean you're not going? He goes, well, my girlfriend's got a wedding she's going to this week, and she wants me to be here. And I said, we have talked about this for months. I mean, the money's already paid. He goes, I'm not going. So I was pretty mad.
Yeah.
But I had paid all that money. We ended up doing a retreat at the hotel that we had rented. So I took kids. I actually took extra kids. Once I found out he wasn't going, I called some of the kids that were in my program. I said, you need to go. We're doing a retreat. We're going to fix this. Never doing it like this again. Next year we're going to be big. So we went and did this retreat. It really built up the positive motivation within the program. The next year, we came in blazing hot. We beat Cleveland. We beat Brentwood. We beat. There were several big schools that were part of it that year. And I'm not saying that to boast because the kids did the work. I don't do anything. I just take them. But our preparation changed. How we prepared for that. And I think that downfall of that kid dropping out is what motivated us to do really well. And one of the cool things was my daughter was a part of that the year that we won that first year in 2016. She's got a big ring. Kids win championships in football and basketball, and I always said, if we ever win a championship, my kids are getting rings.
Yeah.
So she's got a great big old gaudy looking ring that she keeps on her little shelf.
Is she going into anything with...
She's in communications at Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's at Lee studying. She'll graduate in a year or so.
Would you say that Lee's program is superior than yours? Or is it just
Oh,
different?
yeah. No, totally superior than mine. The difference between mine and Lee, kids go to college, they do about 1 year of core academics, math, science, that kind of thing. And then the next 3 years, they are really redundant in their core class. And the professors they have there, they had one guy, he's gone now, but do you know Dustin Kaywood? He's of the Kaywood family, lives over there at Kingwood Estates.
Oh, yeah.
David Kaywood and all
Yeah,
of them.
I know David.
But Dustin graduated with you, 84.
David graduated with me, I think. We had...
You're right.
Yeah,
Dustin was a little bit younger.
Was
Yeah,
that his younger brother?
David was 84. You're right, yeah. So Dustin worked for Skywalker Ranch in California, which is George Lucas, Star Wars,
Star
audio.
Wars, yeah.
He has Oscars, Emmys. He has major awards.
David's brother?
Yes.
Huh.
And Lee wrangled him for 5-6 years when they built that new building. You know, where First Baptist across the street there.
Yeah.
When they built that, they pulled him in year one, and he helped create some of the things inside that, you know, routinely are the best part of that. So they have a film program. They do a graphic arts program, like drawing, digital drawing. Jordan Holt is the professor.
Like cartoons would come into play with that?
Cartoons, but also just beautiful drawings. I mean, it's unreal. Graphic design. And then they have a news class. Jeff Salyer is the program director, and Mary Dukes. All those people are really, really top echelon professors. You won't find any of that at Cleveland State, Chattanooga State. I don't know about UTC.
We've sort of become the hub for that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a super nice facility. I think Lee is more known for their nursing program and their music program, but that, you know, is stellar. And because Lee is not that expensive of a school, even though it's private, fortunately a lot of students can, you know, go there. I have a lot of students that go there. I've got several that are there now, graduate every year, go do wonderful things. One that graduated just recently, Trevor Hancock, he's down in Georgia, and he works and lives in a collective. It's kind of like a communications group where they do feature films, they do music videos, how-to, safety training, they do all of it. And they all live together.
Like a commune.
Yeah, it's really unique. And every single one of them are just top-notch creative. And he's one of my students. He had him as a freshman all the way through senior. I mean, I've seen really, really great stuff from him. Very proud of him.
Now, is this COVID? How has this been affected?
It's been down. I mean, obviously, I mentioned that it canceled our state conference back.
Plus
in
all
April.
of these interviews and stuff. This guy.
tough.
Now you just got over COVID, right?
Yeah, I did. I spent 10 days in the hospital.
Tell us about your experience.
Well, had a family member get COVID and tested positive, and so the whole family went into quarantine, and she showed symptoms, you know, a couple days later. So all of us decided we're going to go get tested and see if we're positive or not.
Were you showing any signs at that point?
At first, I wasn't. Nothing. And you can think you have a symptom, whether you do or don't. Oh man, I had a headache. You know, I just.
So when you went tested, you had no symptoms.
I had no symptoms, and so I went and got tested, got the results back the next day, and I was positive. I was thinking, okay, I mean, I feel pretty good. I'm not, probably going to be all right. You know, I'm going to keep to myself, stay in the house. I'm not going to get out. You know, and I looked online. What are some of the things you need to do if you get COVID? What's some of the things that you need to make sure you're doing a lot of? Fresh air, daylight. You know, it's okay to go outside. You know, take a walk. I went for a walk one day, a long walk. It was over a mile, and I had symptoms at that point.
What was the
achy, little short breath.
Where was you achy?
Just everywhere. I mean, almost like having a fever, but I didn't have a fever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of achy. I got chills. I remember getting chilled, but I wasn't running a fever, and I thought that was really strange. My wife works with somebody that her husband works at the hospital, and she got touched base with him somehow about oxygen levels. And we had an oxygen meter that you snap on your finger, and you obviously want to be 100%, you know, oxygen. Mine was in the low 80s.
Did you feel bad at that time, other than just?
Yeah, I was feeling kind of weird. In fact, I couldn't sleep in the bed. If I laid down, I felt like I was smothering.
So
miserable.
So you weren't asymptomatic.
No, I was symptomatic. I started out feeling pretty good, but
what, 2 days into it?
I would say I got tested on a Friday, was told I was positive on a Saturday, and by Tuesday I was starting to feel weird. I mean, didn't feel right.
So you had been around her what?
That week.
So 7 days?
Yeah, but I was also probably around the person she got it from, too. So, yeah, it was pretty quick. And so
the 7 days is a little.
Thursday.
Isn't 7 days a little far? I mean,
I think so. Thursday of that week, tested positive on Friday. That following Thursday, I wasn't hurting, but I was really short breath. I stayed cold all the time. In fact, it was stupid. I would put on a heavy toboggan hat, you know, a toque's what we call it, and a big heavy coat, 2 or 3 blankets, and just sit there and shake and not have a fever. Mm-hmm. And I think that's from low oxygen level. And anyway, my wife, she didn't tell me you need to go to the hospital. She was saying, what do you think you need to do? You know, and that's what she was trying to infer. And I said, I guess I need to go. I mean, I'm not getting better. And I don't want to stay like this. So I go down.
That was a week after the other person.
That was Thursday.
Yeah,
it was a week after.
A week after you'd found out that person that you.
So she drops me off at the ER. She doesn't go in because it's, you know, bad. And I go in, check in, and it's about a 3-hour check-in process, all in all, till I was actually in a room in the ER. And when they were asking me all the questions initially, when I'm, you know, there 15, 20 minutes, they start asking me all the questions. They took my temperature, and I had 103 fever. 103. Didn't even know it. And I'm wearing a mask, and I am so smothered. My throat is dry. My mouth was clicking. You know, it was so dry, dehydrated. I couldn't swallow. It was really, really painful. And I kept asking for water or ice or anything.
Couldn't swallow at all, or just not good?
At all. I mean, I couldn't swallow.
Because you were dry.
I was totally dried out. And I kept asking for water and ice, and they said, no, sorry, we have to do blood work or whatever work we got to do. We got to do all of that before we can give you anything. And I kept asking. And, you know, they were very nice.
Were you in a room at this point?
No. Finally, I was. There's a room they took me into to do all that blood work initially, and then finally they moved me to a room in the ER that I stayed in. I was there over 30 hours, before I got moved to an actual room in the hospital. And
Because they didn't have any rooms?
didn't have any rooms. In fact, they didn't have any ER rooms available. I only asked to go to the bathroom once. And when I went out the door, there were people lined up in wheelchairs and other chairs. You know, no beds. I thought, I'd heard, you know, they put beds in the hallway or whatever. There was nothing like that. It was just people. And I saw an older lady. I felt guilty being in a room. This older lady sitting out there, and she was crying like she was in pain. And I don't even know what she was there for. She may not have been COVID related, but I felt a little guilty that I had a room, and, you know.
So you finally, so after 30 hours,
They moved me to
where did you stay before that? Were you in another room?
Oh, well, I was in the main emergency room, just the big open lobby, for a couple hours. And then they took me back to a room. I was probably there 30, 40 minutes, and then finally moved to an actual room.
So when you got into the room, into the emergency room, did you feel relieved that you had then had
I did. They gave me a bed, and the bed is so uncomfortable. Have you ever been in the emergency room? Those beds are narrow.
They're narrow.
And the foam plastic, it's really harsh. In fact, one of the nurses left the room.
And they're smaller.
They are well. The room didn't bother me, but the bed. One of the nurses left the room, and I had an extra pillow sitting over on a chair, and I stuck it under where I was sitting, like underneath the sheet, just for extra padding. It was so uncomfortable. But then, like I said, I went outside and saw those people. I had a room. I had no reason to complain about not having a decent bed. I had a bed. Those people didn't even have a bed.
Boy.
So they put me on an IV, and I started rehydrating a little bit. They gave me ice.
So this is from when the time that you found out this person that you were around had gotten tested positive. How many days was it before you said, you know what, I'm sick?
I think she tested on a Wednesday. My family member. And it was the next week, Thursday. So 8 days.
8 days before
Well, I felt bad on Tuesday. I probably could have went to the hospital on Tuesday. But I didn't go until Thursday. So 6 days.
6 days.
Yeah.
So my son has it. And
yeah.
And I can't remember which day he tested. I want to say it was Tuesday or Wednesday. So
You're closing in on that.
I'm feeling absolutely fine.
Yeah, that's good.
Were you feeling bad at that point yet?
I think I woke up that Tuesday morning feeling a little rough. I mean, not wanting to, obviously, but I think it was a bad night's sleep. I think I got up early. I don't remember. I think I went to bed late and got up early because I couldn't sleep well. I was smothered. And
on day 6.
Yeah. So, and I'll be honest with you, Dee, when I went to the hospital and my wife dropped me off in the ER, and they said, and I was feeling horrible. Then they tell me I have a 103-degree fever, and then I have to sit, for a couple hours. And then I go back and they beat me up with needles. I'm dehydrated. My skin it's gone. They had a hard time getting a place to draw blood from. So, I'm getting it like this. And of course, I'm just sitting there. I'm like, whatever. But I really didn't think I was going to leave the hospital. I thought, this is it. Now, it sounds very morbid, but
you weren't even that sick at that point.
Yeah, I was pretty sick. Going into the hospital with 103 fever and severely dehydrated, and just all the other, your mind beats you up when you go through stuff like that. You just start thinking, what if? I'm not going to leave here. What did I didn't prepare my family. I didn't prepare myself in any way. If I die today, I didn't do anything right. I don't have anything.
The garage needs cleaning. Well, everything
Nothing.
like that, right?
That thing, hey, tell your wife, don't give away your saxophones. They're actually valuable, you know, those kind of things.
Otherwise, she wouldn't know.
She'll know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, she would figure it out. But yeah, those little things. I'm sitting there just beating myself up with it. I'm like, man, I got family members I have not talked to in years. I need to call them, or, you know, just that kind of thing. You know, I haven't spent time with my grandkids in a week. I miss that, you know. It really hit me hard mentally. You know, that was the challenge. And it's not like there's a psychiatric care in the ER that, you know, they may come around and say, how are you feeling? You know, how you really, you know, they don't
Before
ask you about
they're already
mentally.
leaving, I guess.
Yeah, they're not talking about mental anguish. They're asking about pain on a scale of 1 to 10. How's your pain? You know,
Now,
I'm
my
just
son,
thinking about dying.
My son has had, he went to the hospital and they said, you're not even bad enough to be here.
Yeah.
But his anxiety level is so high that is almost a problem.
Yeah. That hurts.
I mean, you know, and you see all this stuff on TV, you don't know. Now, if you'd been at a rock concert instead of the hospital, would you have felt better, or was you still sick?
I was pretty sick. Yeah.
Now,
I had a constant ringing in my ear. I did not sleep well. I could not find a great position to sleep. And you know, they got the beds that tilt way up. I would tilt it up and kind of, you know, get a position and lay there for a while. I was like,
what was hurting?
just breathing. And at that point, I had oxygen. I wore the oxygen thing up in my nose. And tell you something funny. So, the respiratory doctor, come around to see me every day, as did, they call the doctor on the floor the hospitalist. You know, the main doctor that comes around. Saw them once a day, sometimes twice a day. And probably my second day that I'm in the main room
On the Saturday, I think. You got in the room on
Thursday, so Saturday, probably Monday. Monday I'm in there, and the respiratory doctor comes around and talking to him, and he's asking me all kinds of questions, and I'm not lethargic. I'm with it at that point, and I'm trying to get better. And he asked me, how was my breathing? I said, I feel like my nose is like plugged up, like I'm not getting the same amount of oxygen I was yesterday. And he goes, oh, that's bad. He goes, let me tell one of your nurses to bring you something hot, like a washcloth to, you know, kind of breathe in a little bit, wash your face or whatever. So nurse, you know, after we finish talking, nurse brings in a washcloth. She brings that in, and she leaves, she's hanging out. I'm washing my face with it, and it's really hot. I'm like holding it up to my nose. I pulled the oxygen on. I just pulled out my nose, just breathing in and out. And finally, I just like blow my nose. And I mean, I don't want to describe it. It was horrible. How much gunk. Well, that's why I couldn't breathe. They need a nurse or a doctor just to go around and check everybody that's got oxygen, telling those people to blow their nose. I thought, I can't breathe because nobody's told me. I'm out of it. Not just to blow my nose. And of course, after that point, I mean, 2 or 3 times a day,
You know, some people
that had
a lot
built
of luck
up.
with Flonase.
That's what they told me. They told me coming out, they said, get some. I haven't. I need to get some. But, I mean, it's those little things, you know, that huge help. And I don't want to downplay eating, but I had no appetite, none.
Did you have taste gone or
No,
smell?
I still had taste. I still could smell.
Just no appetite?
My first 2 days in my regular room, I woke up with a fever. Woke up with a fever, like a 101 fever. And I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to have a fever. And they brought me oatmeal, toast, and eggs. Now, I knew I needed to eat. I knew I wasn't getting nutrition through the IV to stay, hydrated through that. So I would eat the eggs. I could not make myself eat those the oatmeal. I could not. And they give you packs of sugar and salt and
Well, it
butter.
just didn't taste good?
It was just so bland. And it was hot. I mean, you would think hot oatmeal.
Yeah, it just tastes
Yeah.
like oatmeal.
I would eat it on a normal day, but I just didn't feel good. So those first 2 days, I even told my wife, I said, man, their oatmeal here is horrible.
You know, Gene Officer, a good friend of mine, he was in room 311.
Yeah, just down the hall.
And he was couldn't eat anything.
Yeah.
And I went to Dunkin' Donuts and got him a dozen of those.
Yeah, I got your text. Hey,
Yeah.
I sent him some, but you didn't answer me,
yeah,
so you didn't get none.
Well, I didn't even know how to do it.
Yeah.
You know, they're so.
Yeah.
And when you take it down there and give it to that emergency
It's
room,
weird.
they almost act like you've got it.
Yeah. In fact, one of the nurses told me, she goes, if your family wants to order you some food or whatever, said, just send it through the ER. And I'm like, that's kind of weird.
I would think that.
And I didn't want my family to get out. You know, they're at home.
And you would think that food would not be something that you transport. Cause
Well, let me back up. So the oatmeal wasn't that great, but the rest of their food was pretty good. I ate everything.
it could have been your taste buds of some.
No,
the time.
Well, the fever.
Maybe
First thing in the morning, and I ate the toast. I put some jelly on it, and I ate the eggs. But something about that oatmeal.
So you were there. By the time you got in the room, how many days were you there? And when you finally got,
I was almost on my third day before I got into the main room.
So you were
Just
just
a few hours from my third day.
So where were you staying then?
I was in the ER. I was staying in that ER
just
room.
in that little room with people coming and going, and
Yep.
that made you sick.
Yeah, because
And when people-
and they didn't draw the curtain,
Yeah,
and the people sitting out in the hall, they could see me and I could see them.
for 3 days.
Yeah. I felt bad too. And they're kind of looking in there like,
Yeah.
what you got that I don't have?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Were you wearing a mask?
I was wearing I was in the ER. The entire time that I was in the ER, I wore a mask. The entire time.
Had to.
Had to.
When nurses.
Now, when I moved to the other floor, they told me I didn't have to.
because you were in that.
Because I was in my own confined room. And they were loaded up. I mean, not only they have one or two masks on, they had 2 or 3 different outfits on top of their scrubs. They had like one gown, and then they had this real porous looking silky kind of gown. I don't know what it was, but I saw them putting it on outside the door. So,
What could you get up and look out the window?
yeah, I was on the north end.
What could
So if you
see?
look out my window, it's right where the old ER was, which is now the Heart and Vascular
So you
building.
were
And I could
looking
see
at-
the Speedway. I could see your church up the road. I could see
crystals.
I couldn't see that far. There was
But you
building
were-
blocking,
you-
but I
you
could
could-
see straight ahead. In fact, I was enjoying that. I kept my blinds, was partially uncluttered, so this bottom part of the window was clear. I wanted to see interaction.
What was your worst day
First 3 days.
in the ER?
First 2 days first
Once
2 days
you
in the
got-
ER and the first day in the main room. I didn't care. I slept off and on erratically. So 3:00 in the morning, I would just get up. And I wouldn't watch TV. I would just get up and go over and sit by the window, look out the window. Then maybe at 5:00, I'd go back and get in bed. They had a straight chair in there, like a dining room chair. It was not comfortable, but I would sit in that, for an hour or two, and then get back in bed. And then,
And text people and everybody text.
every
say,
once
"Hey,
in a while. I didn't, I wasn't on a schedule because, about every hour or two, I'd fall asleep. I just couldn't stay awake. I still have some of that. I still have.
Your voice is a little gravelly.
Yeah, I've been hoarse, coming out. I don't know. I've not been able to breathe real
Did
deep.
you do anything in there that you think helped you?
Yeah, they had a breathing apparatus thing that I practiced breathing on it. I think you would inhale, and this little bobber would go at an indicator, and then when you would blow out, it would drop. And then when you would inhale, try to keep it there as long as I could. And Obviously, I stayed hydrated. I constantly asked for something to drink. Hey, there was some really good nurses in there. I mean, I don't know that they were so much worried about me individually. I'm hoping they just cared for everybody like they did for me. But
And you probably never saw
really,
them. They probably don't even know if they walked in.
I knew them by first name.
And their eyes, I guess.
And their eyes, yeah, and their voice. There was 2 nurses that had a little lift in their voice. They were more high-pitched than other ones. And, I got to know them. There was a couple male nurses that came by. One of them, he wanted to talk football. And I was in one of those moments where I was ready to just pass out tired. And I was like, okay. So we talked football for a while, and I love football.
Was it like a blur?
Yeah.
The whole thing was like a blur?
So the last 2 days, it's kind of like a switch came on. I'm like, I'm ready to go. I was that much better. Had so much realization of where I was, what I was doing. I had really pushed myself to get better. And I was just at a point where I thought, somebody else needs this room.
So you're saying if you've got COVID and you need to go to the hospital, you'll
Go.
know it.
And go.
And if you're ready, and if you're well enough to get out, you'll know that too.
So they have, one of the drugs they put me on was remdesivir. And I guess, it's one that's more common. And they'll give it to you for 5 days. If you're not better by the 5th day, and they start on the 6th day, they will want to keep you for 10 days. I don't know if that's true after 10 days, or they want to keep you another 5, how that works. But
so you went on remdesivir, what, the 3rd day?
The first day in the emergency room, they put me on remdesivir, which is, I don't know if it's a steroid or...
That's what Trump always says, and they say it don't work, but...
It works.
It works.
So...
Could you tell when you was getting better?
Yeah. Yeah, there were some peculiar moments initially where I just thought, I'm horrible. I'm going to die. Mainly from breathing. It was going to be a breathing problem. I didn't say this, but I was coughing up blood quite a bit. And that's scary. That's a predicament. And it wasn't like pink. It was like dark blood. And I even had, one of the doctors, he thought that was very peculiar, and he wanted to take the rag and get it, tested for whatever. I don't think he did, but he mentioned that. And anyway, I think it was the same day that I decided I'm ready to get out of here. I wasn't coughing blood anymore. So probably Thursday before I got out on Saturday, that wasn't happening anymore. I was breathing better. I don't know, probably my conversations with family members, either by phone or text, are probably a little more jovial, just overall different aspect. But, those first 3 days, man, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. That's something that I hope goes away.
Was that as sick as you've ever been?
Probably as sick as I've ever been without breaking a bone or something like that, And I've been pretty healthy, Dee. I mean, nominally I've been fairly healthy. I have high blood pressure. I take medications for it, but
you look healthy.
Most of the time I am, and I'm pretty even keel. I probably need to get a little less even keel, a little more in motion, like you riding a bike or doing something. I got to get some weight off of me and feel better. But for the most part, yeah, I'm pretty healthy. Didn't feel like it then, though. I thought I was at the end of my rope. And I didn't know how to let go or not let go. I didn't know if there was something I could do to make it better, or if I didn't do something that I needed to. I didn't know what that answer was. Yeah. I remember thinking, am I supposed to be doing
Am I supposed to be
something,
walking around
anything,
or laying down?
Or what is it? And I reflect back on that now. It's getting that remdesivir in my system. They gave me a lot of potassium. They said
the remdesivir, what does it make you do?
I think it helps your pneumonia, because I had double pneumonia.
So it dissolves,
I guess.
some mucus, I guess? whatever that is.
Yeah, it helps dry you out.
So it's almost like an extreme sinus medicine, if that makes sense.
Probably some of that.
Dries.
And it was an IV drip. I mean, it wasn't like tablets or something. It was an IV drip. In fact, I remember the last day I'm there, the respiratory doctor came through and he said, "You've got one more treatment of remdesivir and you're out of here." I was like, "Oh man." He goes, "That'll take place at," let me see. He's looking at the chart and he goes, "It'll be about either 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. You'll be finished with that and we'll get you out of here." I was like, "Oh, that would be awesome." So here comes the nurse, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever. She goes, "I've got you some vitamin C." Well, they were giving me vitamin C in a big old IV drip, like 3,500 milligrams or something crazy. I mean, it was excellent for me because really hydrates you and, gives you that vitamin C, which is the two things. Vitamin C, vitamin D are the two big ones along with zinc.
Did they give you vitamin D?
Yes.
In what form?
Tablet. I think it was vitamin D3, I think.
I take one of those every morning.
Yeah, and I do too. So part of my normal regimen, I take a 1-a-day tablet.
So that didn't stop it,
no,
right?
No. And the zinc,
I
think once it got in my lungs, that was it. It just started building, And I don't know that it attacks people anywhere else, but for me, that's scary. And because I play saxophone and because I sing, I mean, I've got some big lung space. I breathe.
It's not like you don't work your lungs out.
No. But I don't know if I could play saxophone like I have.
So there's no rhyme or reason who gets it or who's worse or nothing.
No. It's being in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people.
By accident.
Or not listening to reason when they tell you to stay home and don't have people over at your house, or listen to them, I know people have to work. I know people go to school. I know people have to gather for different reasons, but take the precautions, Right now, we're not in school, we're on a holiday break, but better believe it. When we go back to school, I mean, I will have my kids sitting in certain areas. I'll know where they sit on a daily basis. So if student number 2 sitting right here comes down with COVID, well, student number 3 and number 1 sitting right here, I need to acknowledge to them, what's going on. That's how it works in the school system. And those kids, go in quarantine. But student number 2 doesn't need to be over here with student number 8. They need to stay where they're supposed to be so that we cut down on that. And that's something I've tried to do anyway. But now that I've been through what I've been through, I bring something different to the table now.
So you're more serious about it,
I was pretty serious about it anyway. I really was. I had several different precautions. Every class change, I would spray all my desks down and the door handles. Also have another spray when kids come in the class that they can hand sanitize. I have hand sanitizer in my classroom that any given moment a kid wants to use, they can. 2 or 3 different stations. But I will be direct. Let me just put it that way. I'll be very direct on how we use equipment in the classroom, how it gets wiped down, how you're supposed to be at a specific location.
When you see somebody walking into the store that's wearing a mask,
I respect that.
You could say, now, they may have had COVID.
Or understand how bad it could be with somebody else they know.
Or how scary it is.
And I wear a mask in the store. We've been doing that since March.
You've been as careful as anybody.
Try.
Right?
I really do. Sometimes it takes one moment.
Now, are you supposed to be immune now?
Yeah. So doctor told me that I would be, I don't think he used the word immune, but he said that I would not have it for a period of up to a month, three weeks to a month. that I would not be susceptible. That doesn't mean I need to walk around without a mask. And I'm not contagious. And I did a follow-up with my doctor the other day. And, these are the questions I wanted to know. I have grandkids and
what
son
was
and
it
his
they
wife
told you to do?
I just said, be cautious, same.
So you're supposed to be immune for 3 weeks?
3 weeks to a month.
I thought it was if you'd had it.
Yes, if you had it. 3 weeks to a month.
But I thought if you'd had it, you were good to go forever.
No. As I understand it, you can get it again. My brother, he claims to have had it back in March when everything was first striking up. He just had it last week, tested positive. He lives down in north of Atlanta.
Is his as bad as yours was?
No. Doesn't mean it wasn't easy for him.
Or it doesn't mean it's...
He didn't go to the hospital.
We hadn't yet. It's only been 7 days.
I think he's getting better.
And you didn't go for 6.
Yeah, but he's getting
better. But you were getting worse.
Yes, definitely. And it's intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You come out on the other side of this and you look through all the hoops that you jump through in the hospital to get better, and you look around your community and you think, boy, people are stupid that really don't take this serious and put not only themselves in jeopardy, but their family members, their friends, their extended people they work with. I mean, it's something we need to take serious.
And they say masks, some people say masks don't work, but the doctor's taking that.
So I talked to there was it's the guy that my wife, before I went in the hospital, that she was communicating with about my oxygen level. He came to see me in the hospital a couple times. Really helped build me up to talking, just making me feel good about some of the progress I was making. And he told me, he said, unless you have an N95, I think that's what it is, N95 mask, if you're wearing anything else, it does not help. Here I have been wearing the Gator.
Yeah.
I've been wearing that since March. Well, not the same one. I've got like a dozen of them. And then I've got some cotton masks that the governor sent the teachers.
Yeah.
I've got 3 or 4 of those.
The blue ones?
They're black. And then I've got some that the school system gave out. Graduation last year, I got a couple of those. I had those in the classroom in case a kid didn't have a mask. I would give them out. None of those. I've never worn an N95.
I don't even know what it is.
The entire time I have. So when I got home, I went on Amazon and I ordered a 20-pack of them.
How much was a 20-pack?
Like $15-ish.
What's the difference between an N95?
The filtration in it, in the mask.
Do you have to clean that filter out?
You throw it away.
How often do you wear it?
How
much can you wear one? Right?
I didn't read the instructions.
I don't know if it'd be like
Until
it's
it
just
starts
20
stinking
days.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. You're supposed to throw it away daily or weekly, or I don't know. So I need to be educated on that.
Yeah.
I guess I'll look on the wrapper.
And see if it's one a day.
But I bought a pack of 20 of them. I told my family, I said, here's the mask we're supposed to be wearing. My wife and daughters, they've got the cutesy,
I've got those.
The mask that somebody professionally has made so it looks good.
Yeah.
I don't have any of those, but I think I have a UT mask. That was the first one I think I had.
But you're saying, according to that doctor, that's useless.
No, useless.
In
fact, it's probably worse.
Yeah.
Because if you come in contact with it, you're just keeping it on your face.
Yeah. And you think that you're safe.
You think it, yeah.
You'd better off not to have one and just be more cautious, I guess.
That's right. So when you think about going to the barber, I don't go to a barber, when you think about going to the dentist, you think, those kind of places where you're really close contact, just kind of wonder how those people are dealing with that kind of close contact. Because it's just people walk in.
Every day.
Do what they do, and then they leave.
Yeah.
Next person walks in.
Don't even know their name, maybe.
Yeah. Also worry about churches. Churches gather in hundreds and hundreds, in some places thousands at a time. And most people go to church are, kind of happy and huggy and, you know, they want to get close
Yeah.
and they think they're
You're all
immune.
walking down the same hall.
Yeah, I mean, you see this lady that you've known for 30 years and she's not related to you, but you want to go hug her, you know, because you feel like every time you see her, you're supposed to hug this person. I mean, those kind of places worry me right now because, you know, my parents go to church. They act like they're immune. Mom and Dad, they wear a mask. I'm going to say they wear a mask.
Not an N95, right?
I think Dad had an N95, if I'm not mistaken. But they go to Perry Stone's on Tuesday or Thursday, whenever it is. They do the ramp.
Yeah.
And then they go to Peerless Road Church God of Prophecy, where I go to church on Sundays. Dad's one of the deacons there, so he's helping with both services, both morning services. You know, I worry about them, you know, who they're in contact with. Hey, when my family was hit with COVID, and I'm in the hospital, that community, people at our church, people at the school system, other family and friends, my neighborhood, people just started calling up, said, hey, we want to bring you a meal tonight. Is anybody bringing you something tonight? Well, no, nobody's bringing it. Well, I've got a full cooked meal coming over right away, you know, so they bring a meal. Next day it would be somebody, hey, you guys like Cracker Barrel? We're going to order up Cracker Barrel and send it to you. Is that okay? I'm like, it's just awesome. You know, people pitched in. I mean, we're able to take care of ourselves now, but you're in that really, really low place. How do people manage that don't have those kind of circle of friends? You know, it's unreal.
It makes you want to help next time you hear
sure.
somebody.
You better believe it. Better believe it. I want to be on the help side instead of the receiving every time. You know, if you're on the receiving side, that means something's wrong.
But you know, you have to have some immunity to get it, to not get it again. You would think.
I mean, you're probably on the brighter side, but like I said, my brother, he thinks he got it at church, at the church where he goes. And back in March he had it. He said he probably got it. I don't know if he said he got it from the church then, but I think that's what he said. And then just last week, and he's on the worship team, so he's one of the people that goes up on the platform and sings. In fact, that Sunday he sent me a note. Right, he was finishing a song. He went off the stage and sent me a note, and he was singing a song. He was the only singer on the stage, and he said the entire time that he was singing, he was thinking about me being in the hospital and just singing his heart out, gushing tears. You know, that was, you know, very meaningful for me. I watched it. Once he said it, I pulled it up and I watched it. I was like, wow, that's tremendous. And he ends up getting COVID at the church.
While he's singing, he's got
Probably
it,
that day.
I guess.
Probably that day. So it's hard, man.
That this vaccine's going to come out.
I think the vaccine's good. I'm going
Or
to take
it's
it.
out. Yeah, I'll take
bring
it.
it my way. I'll take it.
Yeah. So what's new? What's next for you, Gwen? You
Well,
gonna stay at Bradley till you retire, or what?
I've got about 10 more years. You know, I hit 65, probably when I'll retire. I don't have multiple bank accounts, you know, ready to retire. I know some people that they're ready to retire.
Yeah.
And they're looking for that other thing.
Yeah.
I enjoy teaching. I doubt very much that I will get tired of teaching. I say that out loud because I really, really enjoy. I have some students that, you know, they're knuckleheads. You can tell. Somebody comes in, they just want to act out and show up. I'm like, you're going to be good as a sports person. I can put you in front of the camera and you can put that energy and, you know, go around. In fact, I've got a senior student like that right now. I won't name his name, but he comes in, he thinks the room is his stage. He wants to tell a joke and this and that. And he's a great kid. He's not a bad kid. He's a knucklehead. And I had him working behind the camera for a while, and I said, man, what about the weather? And I put him in the weather, and not only did he adapt to doing the weather, he loves it. He tells everybody across the whole school, I am the weatherman. you need to watch my episode tomorrow. I'm going to talk about blah, blah, blah. And he, builds it up. He's a real character.
Yeah.
So I like to be able to take a kid like that that's hard-nosed, doesn't have that kind of direction, probably doesn't want to be a weather guy, but comes in my classroom acting out, and I can push him in a direction. He can enjoy that, build it up, own it, become that character in my classroom, and it's great. Then and I tell him, I said, out of all 4 positions that are in front of the camera, if you want to act crazy, you want to tell a joke, you want to act silly, the weather guy, that's where you need to do it.
Yeah.
My 2 news people, they're doing serious news. They're talking about somebody getting murdered.
And sports is serious.
And sports, yeah, you don't want to aggravate any of that. So my weather guy, he gets that angle, and it worked for him. Then I also have, like you mentioned, there's not everybody who wants to be in front of the camera. I have a student that does audio, and that kid will pick the best song, match it, work with the director, fade in the music, pull out the music, set up the microphones every time with each individual. I enjoy finding those kids and connecting them with that. I don't teach science. I don't teach math, algebra. I teach English to a degree with, the type of descriptive writing we do. But if you've got a student, if you're a parent of students that have a hard way to go with some of your kids not really fitting into high school, I can take a kid like that and plug them in a direction.
Because you've got multiple
Yeah,
areas.
so many different areas, yes. And sports production. So I have a kid doesn't want to do the news, could care less. I have a rock band class. Kids, perform, we record music and go out and perform it, on the stage. They don't want to do that. But they like sports. Maybe they used to be a wrestler. Maybe they have a brother that wrestles, or somebody on the football team, or maybe they have an injury that keeps them out of participating anymore. Maybe they have a medical whatever, but they love it. I have so many different areas in sports production to plant somebody. Running the Jumbotron, having fun with the graphics on the Jumbotron. Sometimes we don't use Gary for commentary. If the radio's not there, we'll do our own commentary. I have one student in particular that he's great at it.
You've got 20 different areas you can train them in.
There's so many different. And we also do esports. I coach the John Madden football team.
I'm not familiar with that.
So it's a video game. John Madden was a coach of the Raiders back in the 70s.
So it's like fantasy football or something?
No, you're actually, it's like Xbox or PlayStation.
Oh.
And you're the Dallas Cowboys, and you're playing another team that's the Philadelphia Eagles. They're playing today.
Yeah.
And that's a competitive sport in high school now. In fact, there's scholarships given out, 10, 20, 30.
For people that
can
what
play games.
I'd call gamers, I guess.
Gamers, yeah. So this past year in the spring, one of my students that plays, he placed 3rd in the nation for John Madden. Number 3 in the nation.
Golly.
Tens of thousands of kids participating. He's number 3. Yeah.
And so y'all do announcing for those?
No. They just sit. They turn on the game system, got a headset. They're talking to the kid that's in Toledo or wherever the other kid is. And, they start playing at 5 o'clock and game on. They play a whole 4 quarters of the game. And whoever wins, is labeled winner. The loser goes on takes a loss. Then they have a into the season tournament, and that's when it really gets down to brass tacks. But pretty neat. And there's huge scholarships. There's colleges that have these teams now. So this kid, Jay Standridge, he's probably going to get some college offers to play John Madden at MTSU
what's the
or whatever.
point of that?
It's a pastime that you're good at. The eye-hand skill coordination is pretty, impeccable. You have to be really good at that.
Yeah.
And there are jobs where you can use that type of coordination. So that, and it's a team sport at the collegiate level. So maybe he doesn't want to be a gamer the rest of his life.
But maybe he gets.
But it can get him in college, pay for half of his college tuition, or a third of it, or all of it, whatever. And this is a kid that does sports commentary. He wants to be a broadcaster. He's the kid that I call when they're not doing the radio.
Yeah.
I call Jace, and it's either Jace and another kid or Jace and myself, and we'll do a basketball game together.
And all these students change when graduation. You have
Every
a new
year.
group that comes in.
Every year. So I have them for 4 years. You kind of pace it as it goes. And about every third year, I have a huge graduating class. So year before last would have been 19, right? 2019, I had 30-something, almost 40 students graduate that year. That's
Out
a
of
lot.
your class.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That was Gideon Ratcliffe's
Yeah.
graduation year. 2016, I had like low 30s, 30-something kids. That was when my daughter graduated. And those are big lumps, because the next year you're going to start pulling really deep to pull up. So most of my news class, I have 3 tiers. So I've got your nominal students that are doing the basic editing. I've got another tier of student management, making sure everything gets done. And I've got 2 or 3 students at the very top that are really making sure everything gets done.
The people that are in the management of that are almost getting a good training too.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it's that, but just managing.
I had a conversation with a news director at a local channel in Chattanooga, and the students that have went to nationals, the ones that have won state, and that's 4. It's a group of 4 students. Those students have went to nationals. Every year that we've gone to nationals, those kids reach a score. They call it a cut score that gives them a nationally recognized certification, which is, if you're going to take the test, it'd be like $150 to $200 to take the test, but you still got to pass it. So they have reached that cut score and got the certificate. So I'm talking to this news director in Chattanooga, and he tells me that certificate to him is the same as somebody with an associate's degree from Cleveland State or Chattanooga State. He said, but that would probably be more of a go-to, because that is mandating you're good in the news.
More practical.
You have that certificate and you take it to go get a job at 3, 9, 12 or Fox, you've got your foot in the door to get an entry-level job. You're not going to be the anchor, but if you get an entry-level job making 30-something thousand on up, that's great.
And the people that can become an anchor are few and far between. Anyway,
Here's my philosophy. In Europe, your anchors are actors and actresses. They are not news people. They have not studied broadcasting. They don't know how to edit. They don't understand the whole facet of gathering news. They're just reading, and it's their connection through the camera that makes all of that vivid. I think it's a connection of the two. I think it's being an actor or an actress and understanding production that works the best. So yeah, not everybody's going to be a good anchor, but I've had a few. I had one in particular. Her name's Mary Beth Mangrum. She did a screen test for me when she was a sophomore in high school. The whole class did the screen test. And when I was watching the screen test live, I'm sitting off to the side, just looking at the TV monitor. We've got one hanging up in the ceiling. I just thought, she has got it. And she's an actress. She's involved very deeply in theater. She's a lead actress. Right now, she's at Chattanooga State. And she's also involved in community theater. Brilliant the way she handles all of that. She looks into the camera. Dee, you would think she's talking directly to you.
How do they do that?
She's got it.
It's just an art.
It's the way she compels herself through the camera lens. And some people can do it, and others not even close. So as a sophomore, I remember thinking, I have got to get her in my news class immediately and make a difference with her, start role-playing, getting this working. So because I did that, then her junior year, she was on that group of students that went with me to state and won state, and then went to nationals. And her senior year, she also did it again. She has 2. Now, the director that was working at that time, Tara Davis, by far the best news director I've ever had. And also, sophomore year, which was the same year for both of them, found her and was able to start developing that. That's the knack. If you can focus on them in their freshman and sophomore year and figure out where their best placement is, may not always be right, but if you can try, man, it makes a huge difference because their passion starts growing really deep.
And in the end, that's what this is about, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about them getting a job.
Yeah.
It's about them learning to be good citizens and making something out of themselves, you know? Best thing that can ever happen to me in this field of work is 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 years down the road, one of those students call me up and say, hey, you know what? I'm working in Denver. I'm doing blah, blah, blah. And you really hit it home with me. I figured some things out, did college or whatever, training, and, you know, thank you. I had one student call me up and he said, I got to tell you, I'm on the road with this sound company, and I finished my schooling at MTSU, did wonderful there, got my master's degree, and I hooked up with this audio company out of Nashville, you know, right there in Murfreesboro, and now I'm on the road, going to be working with different musicians touring. Mm-hmm. He said, my first paycheck is coming, you know, later this week. He goes, I want to send you a gift. I was like, wow, what, you know? I mean, it came from out of nowhere. Yeah. And I said, man, his name's Jaron. I said, you don't have to send me anything. I said, this phone call means way more than,
because you taught him audio.
Yeah. I said, you did what I asked you to do. And you took that yourself and made something out of yourself. All I did was kind of prod you in the right direction. And I love that you called to say thank you. And I said, but you don't have to send me a gift. I said, if you did, that's cool. I said, but I would rather you tell me, you know what, I'm going to find somebody down the road and I'm going to treat them like Mr. Shroyer treated me, and hopefully help that person. I said, pay it forward, man. Do that. I said, that. And he was even, when we were talking, you could hear him, you know, his voice breaking like he was crying. I was just like, it's pretty unique. I love when somebody calls me back just to say thank you, but I don't deserve a gift or anything like that. You know, I actually get paid for teaching, so.
I have a feeling if you were teaching math, you'd be the same way.
Oh, I don't know. Math? Think about it.
I mean, as far as the care for...
all the books I've read, Algebra 1 never comes up on that list of... Wow.
I mean, as far as caring about trying to accomplish...
Just the way you teach somebody?
Do you think it's...
I care enough that the subject matter that I'm teaching...
Do you think you care about the subject matter, or do you think it's your job?
I think it's a combination of all of that, because I'll just be honest with you. If let's say they cut my position, God forbid, let's say they cut my position, and I was no longer offered a AV teaching job at Bradley. But they came around to me and they said, you know what, though? We need 6 new math teachers, and we're going to give you a waiver so you can start teaching math. I'm looking for a new job, Dee. I'm not going to teach math.
What about driver's ed?
Forget it. Yeah.
So this is your interest.
This is it. I'm either going to do this, or I'm going to go back into the field where I'm making it happen. Like, as a sports guy, you know, calling games or doing video podcasts or doing the news or making film, you know, movies. I'm not, the only reason I'm teaching is because of what God has provided, the knowledge, you know, that I've been able to gather over the years and put it to use. He did not give me the gift of math.
Or necessarily teaching.
I don't know. I'm pretty thrilled with my teaching style. You know, I honestly feel like I'm a teacher that cares. We have a class that's kind of like a homeroom class. The school will just literally dump 30 students in that class that I have no connection with. They don't take any of my classes. Once in a while, I'll have one or two that do.
Yeah.
But from day one, I get to know those kids on a personal level. First of all, learning their name, learning what their interests are in school. And then immediately, my job at that point is to make sure they do everything they can to finish school at Bradley, and whatever their interest is, they do whatever they can at Bradley to help get them there. So they want to be a criminal lawyer, right? And they're in my homeroom class. I got nothing for them. There's nothing in my class that's going to help them become a criminal lawyer. However, I can be very persuasive on making sure that they take the classes at Bradley that will help them get there. We have a criminal justice program at Bradley, which is awesome. We have some forensics type classes involved in that are just marvelous. Obviously, you would want to take classes like Latin, or, I don't know, go deeper into English composition. Writing, is pretty big for a lawyer. But I'm very compelling, and my argument is, if you're here at Bradley and you're going to graduate, which you are, then we need to figure out what things you can take here at Bradley to get you to that next step of what you want to do after high school, right? So if you want to be that lawyer, let's figure out how to get you there. Yeah, you're going to have to take college and go through law school, but let's hear at Bradley. What can we do here at Bradley that helps pique your interest even more? And sometimes it's sports. I want to be a lawyer, but I'm good at soccer. Okay, soccer is going to keep you connected to the school, right? It's good athletics. It's going to keep you connected. So I use that circle too. But, those aren't my kids, but I'm going to teach them everything I can.
I believe if I could sum it up, Gwen Shroyer cares.
I do.
No matter what it is.
Yeah. Dee, you care too, man.
Is that good?
Yeah.